What's up, everyone? So on this channel, not only do I like to review, free VST plugins, and obviously there's a tremendous amount of really good free plugins out there, but I also like to give you music production advice. I've said before that there's almost like a mini music production school online, because when it comes to reviewing these plugins and demonstrating them, that kind of goes hand in hand with kind of giving you some tips and some, education about producing music. And I've noticed that a lot of people who are subscribed to this channel and who have commented and just looking at all the messages, I noticed that a lot of these people are in kind of the beginning stage. A lot of people who comment, who are subscribed, are like, look, I'm in that beginning stage of music production where I'm just starting to learn it. In addition, I've had a lot of friends, family, and people online say, hey, Mark, I know you've been producing music for years, obviously your name, is out there and everything. Do you have any tips about learning music production from the get-go? I'm just starting with Ableton or FL Studio, whatever your DAW is. What are your best tips for learning music production? So in this video, I'm going to give you my 3 best tips, or my 3 best pieces of advice, step by step, to learn music production in the most efficient way possible. Number 1, backwards deconstruction. This is something I wish someone told me years ago when I started producing music, because the second that I realized this, I was like, wait a minute. There's so much amazing information you can learn. So as you can imagine, when it comes to learning music, especially like say if you don't have any background music theory, if you've never played an instrument, learning music production can be very overwhelming. It's a unique blend of technical aspects of the engineering side, things like EQing, compression, mixing, mastering, etc. But then also the creative side of music theory, arranging, composing. And so it's kind of difficult, especially in the beginning, to handle all this, and it can be very overwhelming. So my best advice is to download a really well-made project file online. And there's a bunch of ways you can get these. You can go to Splice, for example, and download. There are big names in electronic music, for example, people like Henry Fong, to pegboard nerds and Jaws, who are actually released their entire project file that you can download. And you can backwards deconstruct. You can go into that project file and say, okay, why do they route this that way? Why are they EQing something? What is EQing? Why do they have this limiter on this one thing? So you can kind of break it down and learn a tremendous amount. Even for me now, after producing music for years, sometimes if I see a really unique project file online and I download it and kind of study it, I'm learning things. I'm like, wow, they did that here. I never even thought of that, or I never even knew that, or I never even had that idea or concept. And it really can improve and greatly speed up the time that it takes to learn music production, because essentially when you download a really well-made project file, and I do suggest make sure it's a very high-quality one, whether it's something from Splice, or if you go on a site like Abletunes, they actually have royalty-free project files that you can pay money. They're usually about $30. You can download it and break it down and construct it, or basically use some of those elements in your own music. And so that way, when you get a really well-made project file right in front of you, you know that everything you're seeing is perfectly crafted to create an amazing song. So think of the genre that you want, whether you produce house, trap, dubstep, techno, whatever the case is. Try to find the best project file you can in that genre that you want to produce, and break it down and backwards deconstruct every little element in it. Number 2, remakes. Now this is something that I was given as a good piece of advice when I first started producing music, and I saw it in a lot of other forums and places as well. If you're watching this video, you may have seen remakes as a really good production tip to get better at producing music. And when I first heard that, I was like, and this is years ago now, I was like, I'm not gonna do that, it's kind of stupid. And now I realized that when I did do that, when I did try doing remakes, it made my music so much better. Essentially, what I'm saying is take a song that you love, think of like the epitome of the sound that you potentially want to be, and try to remake that track as close as possible. You will be blown away by how much you'll learn by trying to recreate or remake your favorite song. And again, this is something that I didn't do in the beginning, and I was like, why would I try to remake one of my favorites? Like, why not just make another song, right? But when you start trying to remake a song and breaking down a song technically, and like I said, obviously in the first part, music production is a unique blend of technical engineering and creativity. But you realize there is a unique kind of formula. For example, when I first started getting into electronic music and studying songs and the way they did everything, I realized that everything's based off the number 8, for example. So most songs, take like a house record, you should have an 8-bar intro. Then the next 8 bars is a second intro within a hi-hat. Then you have a build that's 8 bars. Then you have the first part of the drop, 8 bars. You have the second part of the drop, 8 bars. And notice everything's based off the number 8. I remember when I was studying some of these songs, trying to remake them and everything, I was like, oh wow, it's all about the number 8. For example, especially with electronic music, most songs, you'd be surprised, it's all based off 8 or some, multiplication table of it, right? So 16 bars is the drop. 16 bars is the second part of the drop. Whatever the case is, all about the number 8, which is really, really interesting, right? So there are a lot of things that I started to learn then when I started studying and remaking some songs. So for me, one of my biggest inspirations was Dylan Francis. I'm a huge fan of Moombahton and world music, and that's a big aspect of all the tracks I produce. So I remember studying the way he produces amazing Moombahton records. There's a lot of stuff that I was learning when trying to remake them. You're like, oh, so he did this here. I never even thought of that. Like, and when you really try to break it down and recreate your track as close as possible to that goal that you have, to that masterpiece that this producer made, you'll be surprised how much you'll learn and how quickly you'll learn it too. Because again, even though there is a lot of creativity that exists in music, I mean, that is music, there is kind of an almost unspoken formula, not just with the technical engineering side, but in even the creativity side. For example, things like white noise, I never even thought of using until I realized, wait, a lot of EDM songs use white noise. Why do they do that? What does that mean for the EQ spectrum, for example? So that is a big thing that when you start really trying to remake all these songs that you love, you're going to learn way more than you can ever imagine. And last, but definitely not least, number 3 is pick one element for each song and really try to improve it. What I mean here is learning music production can be unbelievably overwhelming. As you can imagine, there's hundreds of different aspects when it comes to producing music. Everything from dealing with samples to different plugins, right? Like different VSTs and plugins, to dealing with things like mixing and mastering and arranging, and then music theory, and then all the different kind of effects you'll have to use, things like EQing, what is limiting, what is compression. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And there's a lot of stuff. It can be very, very, very overwhelming trying to learn music production for the first time. And so this is a bit of like a meta learning technique. So this advice not only applies to music production, but almost anything. It's take one part of producing music, and so for each track, try to say, okay, I'm going to take this one thing and really try to prove it. So, for example, let's say you're working on a song and you're like, okay, you know what? I don't really understand compression. Like, what is a ratio? What is the attack and release? What is sidechain compression? How is that different than compression? What is the knee? You know, all that kind of stuff. I would say when you're producing this song, say, you know what? For this one song, I'm going to get better at compression. I really want to understand what compressing is and maybe go hand in hand with sidechain compression. So you watch YouTube tutorials, you read blog posts, you basically go on and say, look, rather than try to be all over the place and learn everything I can, I'm just going to niche in and focus just on compression for this one song. Then the next song, really study EQing. You know, what is EQing? What is dynamic EQing? What is, like, why does low cutting most of your elements help with the mix down or master of your track? Why is that such a big deal? You know, why do people EQ? Why do you high cut as opposed to low cut? You know, all these different things that comes with EQing. Then your next song, I would say focus on, okay, how do I make a really, really good mix down? Or what is mixing? What is a mix down? Why is that even important? And how does that go hand in hand with mastering? So on and so forth, right? So for each song, and this is something I did when I was learning, I said, okay, I'm going to focus on this one thing. Because, again, it can be super overwhelming trying to learn everything at once. And obviously, inevitably, you will learn bits and pieces here. You will learn like a little EQing, a little compression, a little mixing and mastering, a little arranging, a little music theory, so on and so forth. But I think for each song, I would highly suggest picking one amazingly important aspect of producing music and focus in on that. That way you're like, look, I'm just all about compression for this track. I'm going to live, eat, and breathe compression. I'm going to study compression from all these amazing YouTube videos that already exist online. All this kind of stuff. And I promise you, that's probably one of the best ways to really then hone in on that craft of improving each aspect of the music production process to make your songs even better. So I hope you like this video. Definitely hit a like and subscribe, because obviously I'm going to be uploading a lot of music production tutorials, in addition to obviously always reviewing a ton of amazing free VSTs out there. In addition, I'm curious, for my producers watching this video, what is one tip that has helped you in terms of learning music production and making that music production process a lot more efficient and a lot more improved to get your tracks better? Let me know what you think in the comments.